So we're going to just do the start of the process, March. Well, actually, probably more like February. I was getting worried about. Actually, no, it's before that. It's when you were trying to get a new job.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll start there.
I mean, it all started when I was struggling with my current job. I was trying to get a new job, but because of my age, I wasn't really getting anywhere.
But why? But I think it's just important because I think the age point is like you're almost 40, so you're not old.
Yeah.
In the world
Certainly
of corporations,
not old, but no, yeah.
Everybody is struggling with the bottom line.
Yeah.
Really, isn't it? Because they're hiring people who are fresh out of university, who could be on the 30 grand mark, which is what you've been on your whole life, and you were looking for jobs that were over the 30, 40 grand, 50 grand mark if you had to go into London.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking for like a better, more competitive salary, basically. But yeah, it just wasn't working out.
Which is fair after 14 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but that wasn't working out, and it was leading to a lot of distress, and the job in general was making me quite frustrated, and it was like quite detrimental to my mental health. I ended up taking a couple of weeks off for my mental health in the end, because I was just sort of struggling with the whole thing. And that was kind of like an initial sort of thing that pushed us to sort of wanting to do something a bit different.
Well, we originally were going to put the house up anyway at that point, because we decided that we were going to do something, but we weren't really sure what that looked like for after we sold the house. We were like, let's put the house up for sale. We don't know how long that's going to take. But there were several triggers. So the first trigger of putting the house up and wanting to try and do something different was your mental health and work. I think the second trigger was financially making life work in the UK. So I don't think, like, this is what always I try to get my head around. It's like you were on 30 something K, 32 or something.
Yeah.
And I'm working self-employed around the 3 children, making just under the tax threshold. So I would always end up hitting about just before that, because that's all I had the capacity to do in terms of work-wise around 3 children. And then so together we were on making like, I don't know, like that 40 grand mark, 3-bed house. And the bills were just the usual bills. Like, we didn't have things on finance.
No.
Our mortgage was on 1.7%.
Yeah, it was, we had a decent, we weren't paying a massive amount on the mortgage.
We kept our shopping to under £120 a week.
Yeah, we were trying to be sensible with that.
We didn't spend money frivolously.
Yeah.
Second-hand clothes.
Yeah.
Like, none of it was adding up financially for us. And we were always, at the end of the month, either struggling or just making it work every month.
Yeah.
So that was the second trigger. And the third trigger probably was the children coming out of the education system in the UK and you seeing that. Yeah,
it was like it felt like now that they were not in full-time education, it felt like we had more license to be sort of free with what we were doing, because we weren't tied down by the school system. So in a way that was like, it felt quite good. So I think those were the 3 main things, weren't they?
Yeah.
We put our house on the market. In reality, we managed to get it by quite quickly. Our house was like a beautiful house that we'd done up, and it was like in like quite a good location in Margate. Yeah, we managed to find a buyer for the house. The house selling process, annoyingly, was a bit longer than it probably should have been, but eventually we managed to complete on the 30th of June. In the meantime, it was like a big battle, not a battle, but like it was like a constant discussion as to because we'd made that decision to sell the house, but we hadn't actually finalised what we wanted to do.
You okay, Ale? Just watching.
That's okay. initially the idea was to maybe do some traveling, but also have like a smaller flat in the UK that we could maybe rent out while we were traveling, or like Airbnb while we were traveling. But we were struggling to find something suitable for our needs, something that was like nice enough to sort of rent out or Airbnb out, but also worked for what we needed, that was sort of, again, was sort of reasonably priced with reasonable sort of service fees and that kind of thing. Moved on from that idea.
But also, Airbnb isn't what it used to be, in that, you know, a lot of people Airbnb now, and a lot of councils are clamping down on Airbnb. Yeah. And a lot of the places where we were looking, which was like keeping within the Kent way, those buildings need a lot of TLC. And so what seems like a level of investment that seems quite savvy, if you do the maths on it, it's not as savvy as you think. So
it felt like, you know, there was, if we were buying flat, there was every chance that you were then going to get pinged for something to do, you know, the pointing, or, you know, the roof needs doing or something like that, and you'd be asked for some money. So it didn't feel like a sort of a sound investment for us, where the point was to try and sort of free ourselves up financially. So yeah, then we kind of moved on to the idea of doing van life.
Well, I had decided to do that.
Yeah.
But now we've started the process. I'm questioning whether I've made the right decision.
I know. Now we're in it. So we're still we're in Derbyshire. We're still sort of in the process. What we should be is out of the UK by now, but unfortunately we're still sort of finalising bits to the van. We're want to make sure the van is like up to scratch, you know, in terms of mechanically and all of that thing. So we've been doing servicing and got a fresh MOT on it, so we didn't have to come back for the MOT, which was due in April. So we've been doing that. We're also getting an amazing rack added, we're hoping, next week. And also just some final bits and pieces that we'd like our converter to add, including all importantly, once the rack goes up, the solar panels on top, to try and make it so we are, you know, genuinely more off-grid, because at the moment, because we don't have that facility, we're kind of reliant on campsites with electric hookups, because, you know, without that sort of solar backup, you know, we're only getting sort of a couple of days out the battery. So yeah, we're hoping that once all those final pieces are added, then we'll feel much more independent, and all being well, we'll be in a position to leave the UK and start with our actual travels that we wanted to do. Also, yeah, the animals. If we manage to get the animals sorted as well,
and
the AHCs for the animals.
I think the realisation, which will come later with more videos that I want to do and more information I want to do, is that even if you're trying to move away from that system of challenge around like rent or mortgage and bills, there's always still some kind of challenge that you're going to have to navigate in a I suppose in a capitalist society. So that's what I'm finding really, really hard, is that we made a decision to find a level of freedom in a van and be like, okay, well, let's do that. And I spent hours watching other people doing it and talking about it. But the reality of it, which I'm sure people are posting about for sure, and I haven't seen as much of it as I should have maybe, but there is a lot of reality that needs to be looked at around the logistics of it, and especially when you're taking 3 children and your pets with you, it's 100%. Not as easy as like, oh, let's buy a van and just leave the country. There's a lot of actual political challenge around that I think needs to be perhaps spoken to in more detail. What I'd like to do is create like a PDF download that people can access, where it's like, think about this, think about that, as like a get started, because there are so many more things to it, like that we hadn't considered before we got into it. The other thing we wanted to do was buy a schoolie that was for sale, and it was a really beautiful schoolie, and that would have been like a version of a flat, but we wanted to put that on land in the UK. Well, you're not going to put it on land in the UK, and anyone that tells you that there's loopholes, anyone that tells you that they're abiding by the law and living on this land without planning permission is a lie. Because that, again, it comes down to the bureaucracy of living in certain parts of the world, or maybe it's all over the world, I don't know, I haven't looked at every country's rulings around parking up something on wheels, but you're not parking up a schoolie on land and being the keeper of the land or anything else. You're parking it up and it's not legal. It
is, you know, that's what we've been looking for. Is like, you know, you're looking for those cheat codes where it's like, well, how can we sort of circumnavigate, you know, how can we sort of find loopholes in the system? You can't. You're not. They've got you. They've got you.
You can't find loopholes, but you can avoid abiding by the system. But then we met someone recently who isn't abiding by the system on their land, and that sounded like actual hell on earth.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I mean, that's the thing.
It's what your nervous system can take, essentially, which our nervous systems are limited in terms of not abiding by the rules.
Exactly.
So
you know,
I got enough shit without something else.
You know, you don't want to be on land, but then every day worrying that actually enforcement officers are going to be turning up and actually removing you from your land. I mean, that's not a vibe, is it? That's not a chilled out vibe.
It's not with 3 children.
Certainly not.
And a cat and a dog. So yeah, we looked at the schoolie. That was a nightmare, to be honest. And then we decided to go in the van, because your question to me, I'd actually gone away for the first time trying to find the sun. Oh, that's the other trigger, is I really struggle with the lack of light in the UK, like on a physical level. I really, really, really struggle to circumnavigate that time of year, mainly like the March time. So I went away in March for the first time on my own, just to see if the sun would help. It did help for a bit, but then I still felt like I needed more sun. And I was in
you want to stay there,
I was in Marrakesh, which is where we want to head to, is Morocco area, not Marrakesh itself. And then you were on your 2-week off with your mental health, and then you said, what would it take for me to quit my job? Well, it would take for you to quit your job living in a van. Although financially, I'm going to be interested to see how that does work out, because of what we've just been talking about. There are more costs involved than people are letting on. If you want to abide by the system and the rules and have insurance on your van, then you have got to circumnavigate quite a lot of financial challenges that you probably hadn't thought of. However, we did manage to have a chunk of money after selling the house, which meant we could invest that in what we want to invest it in, and we don't know what that is yet. But to begin with, it was the van.
I think our initial sort of top tip would be, if you're trying to do it on a budget, I would think again, like, it's, you know, there's a lot, unless you're confident you've got all the costs down, and like you say, we will try and give all the information that we can to, like, you know, to guide anyone who's interested in looking into it. But unless you're confident you've got all those costs down, like, budgeting is tricky.
Yeah, I think that anyone that's even self-building, if you factor in their time as well, you know, and actually everything's not cheap. So if you want to clad your van out like we have in ply, then aware that ply is now 3 times the price of what it was when we did our kitchen a few years ago. If you want to put a full size, like a decent fridge in your van, aware that that's more expensive than a fridge that you put in your house at that size. You know, and if you want to insure your van to go abroad, aware that insurance is going to be probably 3-4 times what it is on your usual insurance.
On your car,
so
whatever,
it's like these constant, like, but at the same time, because we didn't invest it in a flat that probably still would have had to sink a lot of money into, we've actually got to the point now where we're almost out of the money
pit phase,
and hopefully we'll now have this time to just sort of reorient with what we want to do with the money that we have left from the house sale. But essentially, it meant that the trigger of the other thing was, okay, we want to live in a van, not because, yeah, we really, really want to live in a van. There is always this element of like, oh, we've chosen to live in a van.
Yes.
But we've chosen to live in a van because we felt like it was the only option in the system right now that we could see that was a level of loophole that allowed us to land for a moment.
Yeah.
And find where we wanted to be.
And basically just take a break for a year, couple of years, 3 years, however long, it feels right for, basically. We're not saying this is like, a forever thing, obviously not. But it's a chance for us to just do something a bit different and, do something for our mental health, basically.
Yeah, exactly that.
That was the main thing. Mental health, I mean, the three main things. It's like the mental health, the financial aspect, but also, the philosophical, trying to sort of come away from the system to an extent as much as you can do, basically. Those are the three main things. Those are the three main push factors, basically, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk more about the process, selling everything in our house, what that looked like. Yeah. But this was the initial, this is why we did it.
Talk about like the reasons why.
Because a lot of people ask.
Because we get a lot of questions. You live in a van, why? Why would you do that?
Well, why are you selling everything? Why would you do that?
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart.
No.